if they had told me there were going to be all these acts on stage, I don't know whether I would have had the courage to come. You're tough acts to follow. I am very seriously honored to be here with you tonight. People across this country are watching Wisconsin. You have been an inspiration to workers across this country who have watched their wages, their benefits, their pensions, their full-time positions under attack from extremists in this country. And to watch Wisconsin come together and have all the sit-ins and demonstrations and rallies that you did in Madison to support one another the way you support one another is tremendously inspiring to people around this country. So when John Stocks asked me if I'd be willing to come, I was more than happy to. You know, Scott Walker, I know a lot of us have talked about this, but for as much evil as he has done and is doing, one great thing he did was bring the labor community together, bring people of conscience and people of caring, people that believe in the dignity of each individual. He has brought us all together. And with the Wisconsin movement and the Occupy movement, I think there's a new day dawning in America. It is true that we are seeing the most aggressive attack on the middle class that has ever happened, certainly in the United States, in some ways even globally. We see wages being reduced. We see number of people with defined benefit pensions are almost gone in today's society. We see health care being taken away, every contract, every year, over and over again from workers. We see this terrible cancer of temporary employment. You know, our kids and grandkids, they don't get hired into permanent jobs today. Whether it's in public sector or private sector, they're saying we don't have enough money. And I guess if there's something that really makes me angry, it's that too many of us accept their economic framework. We need to remind ourselves, our family, our friends, our neighbors, we are still the wealthiest country in the world. Somebody once told me back when I was first learning the skills of organizing that you get what you're willing to accept in life. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not willing to accept a destruction of the middle class. Are you? No! And I'm not willing to accept this attack on democracy. Unprecedented, unparalleled attack on democracy. We've got a Republican-dominated United States Supreme Court that says that the wealthiest in this country, corporations in this country, can spend whatever they want without disclosing it and try to buy elections in America. That's a tremendous blow to democracy. And we cannot let that decision stand if we want democracy in America. The second tremendous attack on democracy in America, and you've got one of the worst laws here in Wisconsin, is an attempt to suppress voting rights. In a democracy, we should be trying to expand access to voting. We should be giving people more days, not less days. We should make registration easier, not harder. And this attack on the elderly and this attack on the less fortunate in society with these voter IDs that a lot of our parents and grandparents cannot get, think about it. People who voted for 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years. And today they may not be able to drive a vehicle, and so they may not have a voter ID. Should they be denied the right to vote in the United States of America? No, absolutely not. And kids of color, kids and people in poverty, that it's more difficult for them to get a voter ID. Should they be denied the right to vote in America? And then, you know, I heard John Stocks say this, and I want to quote John. John said that democracy, for educators like yourself, in a democracy you have a strong public education system because that system informs and educates and involves individuals in a democratic society. And what do we see happening in Wisconsin? What do we see happening in Michigan and Florida and Ohio and Pennsylvania and all these other states that are controlled by Republicans? And honestly, what do we see in too many states even controlled by Democratic governors? How can you talk about a democracy and cut K through 12 education over and over again? Yeah. How can you do what Scott Walker is doing here, did here in Wisconsin, $1.6 billion away from K through 12 education to give to who? The wealthy and corporations. Are we going to tolerate that? No! So we've got a major job in front of us. They're attacking our collective bargaining. You can't have a democracy. You as educators, people who know history know this. There's no democratic nation globally without strong unions. Strong unions are the voice of workers. And strong unions represent not only their own membership. Strong and good unions understand that they have a responsibility to all workers and working families in society. And we know that when we in unions bargain better wages and benefits for our members, what happens to all the non-represented, non-union workers in our communities? They see their wages and benefits going up because we're the standard that they try to match. And many times, to keep unions out, bosses match the standards that we set. So collective bargaining is critical to having and building and maintaining a middle class. Collective bargaining is critical to having a democracy. So we know the problems and the ills that are facing us. So the question to me and to us is, what are we going to do about it? And I want to be really clear with you. You are a beacon for democracy in the United States of America. And if the United States of America is going to be a beacon of democracy for the world, then you are a beacon of democracy for the world. What happens here in 49 days and in 77 days will be the election heard around the world. There's a lot of responsibility resting on your shoulders. And I'm here to tell you that the UAW and our local union leadership and Ron McEnroy, who is our regional director for this area, we're going to be with you every inch of the way, every step of the way in the fight to throw Walker out of office and put somebody in who believes in worker rights, who believes in education. And I know all of you are activists or you wouldn't be here today, but it's all of our responsibility. I heard this rule of 10 that was talked about tonight. Great idea. Every one of us has got to think about who are 10 more people we're going to get active. They will have hundreds of millions of dollars. The Koch brothers and others will put tremendous money in to win this election. There's no way we can match that money. The only way we win is with people power. It's a question, what's going to win in Wisconsin? Is it going to be money power or is it going to be people power? So it's up to us to create that people power. But I want to challenge you beyond that. Because that, to me, is only step number one. We need to learn. It's so important that we learn from this crisis and from what the attacks on the middle class and on democracy. And what I have taken away from the Obama election in 2008, from the tsunami of the elections in 2010, you know, you can always blame somebody else. Or you can say, what can we do differently? What I want to challenge you is if we care about public education, we care about democracy, we care about a middle class, we've got to elect Catherine Falk, we've got to be Walker, we've got to re-elect President Obama in November. But much more than that, we have to commit to a lifetime of activism. You have set a model of activism across this country. But if you're a student of history and a student of this country, you know that no social justice really gets achieved unless there is a live movement of people demanding that social justice. When you defeat Walker, we re-elect President Obama, I think there's a great chance that we can elect a majority in the Senate. We can keep a majority in the Senate. Only 25 seats to take a majority back in the House. But I want to challenge you and myself with this. If you don't keep this movement that you've built alive in Wisconsin, alive and active, if we don't build this movement across the country, we will not get the justice that we deserve, our kids deserve, our grandkids deserve. It is only a popular movement, energized, marching, demonstrating, rallying. President Obama cannot accomplish what he wants to, with the values, the core values that he has, without a movement pushing him and pushing everyone. I'm sure have all heard the story of A. Philip Randolph and FDR. When A. Philip Randolph went in to see the president a year after he was elected, and they had a long list of promises that the president had made that he had not delivered on. What did FDR say to him? You're right. He said, but I'll tell you what, I can't achieve that unless you make me. Unless you demand this of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, it will not be achieved. And so the lesson we should learn so that we never have a 2010 again. So really, we elected President Obama in 2008. We elected a majority in the Senate. We elected a majority in the House. And we went and sat back down at our kitchen tables, in our living rooms, and our couches, and we did not keep pushing the people we elected. Because of that, they did not accomplish all they should have. We should have had a landslide victory in 2010. So we have got to be committed to building a movement, to the activism you're building today, that we do not let it die. And I'll tell you what I think the first demonstration after we win in 2010 is. And that is that we demand a change in the Senate rules. Yes. Yes. There is no more undemocratic thing in the United States of America. It is really a dictatorship of the minority, where one senator can block nominations. Just think, if there had not been the tremendous abuse of the filibuster rule by the Republican Party, hundreds of times more than anybody had ever used it or threatened to use it in the past, right today, we would have national single-payer health care. Right today, we would have much more revenue sharing that would be available for the cities and states, where we wouldn't be cutting back on teachers and public employees and firemen and policemen. Think, if there was not the filibuster rule, we would have had much stronger Wall Street reform. The president and the Democrats in the House and Senate did a decent job against tremendous odds. They did get a health care bill passed that is helping people in America, but we should have and would have had so much more. We would have had labor law reform, where workers really would have had the right, a democratic right, to join a union if they wanted to. We would have had so much more. So we will get what we are willing to accept in life. And I hope that you will join me. You're having a great time tonight. You're great activists. You're going to win in 49 days. You're going to win in 77 days. I think we can win an overwhelming victory, because I think the middle of America will not support the extremism of the Republican Party. It will be a difficult battle. We'll have to overcome hundreds of millions of dollars spent against us. But please, my plea to myself and to you is, when we win in November, do not sit back down. Let's be committed. You love children. You went in this profession because you love children. The only way we can provide to children in the United States of America the justice and the freedom they deserve is if we build and keep a social justice movement that spreads like wildfire. I'll make one final pitch. I almost forgot it. The week of April 9th through April 15th, there's a new phenomenon. It is built off the Wisconsin movement. It is built off the Occupy movement. It is a coming together of environmentalists, of women's groups, of faith groups, of LGBT community, of the labor movement, all these different people that have seen personal attacks against them, all these different groups that believe in the dignity of every individual and believe in a fair society, have come together in building, honestly, off of Wisconsin and off the Occupy movement. We're going to try to create this national movement. We made this crazy goal about this is literally 6, 8, maybe 10 weeks ago at the most, I don't think it was that long, that we were going to try to get 100,000 people into training the week of April 9th through April 15th. The training is going to be on don't accept the baloney about their economic frameworks. We're the wealthiest nation in the world. We can have the best K through 12 education system. We can have the best community college and college system. When I graduated from high school, working families could afford to go to colleges. I came in Michigan, and working families in Michigan, kids could go to the University of Michigan or Michigan State University. Today, that's not true in our society. There are less and less working class kids that can be there. We're still as wealthy as we were back then, wealthier in some ways. The problem is that our morals aren't reflected in our budgets. Our morals are not reflected in the way we tax people. Only a popular people's movement is going to change that. So please, I'd encourage all of you as activists, you can go online to 99spring, I forget if it was .com or .org, 99spring.org or .com. Go online. There are cities all across the United States that will be doing this training. It's really important that you as activists go. It's also really important you really energize young people to come. The only way we win in 2012 is if we turn out young people in the numbers that we did in 2008. So you're leading us. We'll be behind you in the walker. You've already recalled them, in getting Kathleen Falk or whoever the Democratic candidate is to win. We'll be working together to make sure President Obama gets reelected. And then let's build the world that our kids and our grandkids deserve. Thanks very much for the great support.